information. Now, as a little ad break, I don't know. This is just a fun thing we're doing. Little Shop of Horrors. Let's talk about it. Let's discuss it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Okay.
Oh.
It's a musical that we are in fact doing. So let's rate the songs. Let's go through them.
I think that we should give a little background of what Little Shop of Horrors is.
I think that is a very good point.
Essentially, what the plot is you have these...
Well, I think what we should do is go through the songs and then explain the plot as it's happening, so we don't, spoil everything immediately. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen the musical, by the way.
Yeah, go away.
Yeah, we'll go on. Okay.
Go on. Yeah.
Come on, you stragglers. Get
Come on, get.
Okay.
My fault.
Sam! No. Alright, they're all gone. Alright, so, take it away.
Alright, you had the list of the songs, right?
Yeah, but they were on the...
Oh, that's right.
I have them memorized. It's fine.
You do? Alright.
I kind of do. Okay, so the very first song.
It's the prologue, Little Shop.
Yeah, it's Little Shop. So it's the three girls just going, Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah, so...
And that essentially sets the tone for what the musical is.
Yeah, it's a very, cheesy, kind of slasher horror type feeling to it.
I mean, 'cause it starts off really, cheery-like.
Yeah.
Until about the end of it where something bad happens.
Yeah. I like the song as an introduction. It repeats a lot, but I feel like it's good for that. So I'm going to give it an honest B tier.
I think B tier is definitely...
It's definitely a B tier. Then after that we have...
Skid Row.
Skid Row, which this is where we get introduced to a lot of the main characters. We get introduced to Mr. Mushnick, Audrey, Seymour. We get to see what life is like for the people inhabiting Skid Row. And I feel like I like all of the solo sections that the characters get, Yeah. Because you get to see a little of their personality. You get to see how Audrey is portrayed and how, one of her lines is downtown where the guys are drips. Because
she is...
With Orin. I'm playing Orin. He abuses Audrey, and so for her, that's a prominent thing within her character, so it's brilliant that she mentions, the guys are drips down on Skid Row.
With Seymour, it talks about how he needs to break away from the status quo of living on Skid Row with the depression and just not making hardly any money.
Yeah, and always feeling trapped. Yeah. And it's a great way to set up the character motivations, trying to say, I gotta get out of here, I've gotta get out of this mess. So I feel like it's a solid A tier.
Definitely A tier.
Yeah.
Next is Dadu.
Yeah, it's Dadu, because this is what we get an introduction from Seymour of Audrey too, as a little plant in a coffee grounds can.
Yeah, Maxwell Coffee.
Maxwell Coffee, not sponsored. They should sponsor us. Now, I love coffee. So
yeah, I also really like coffee.
So we get our setup for Audrey too, and he explains how one day he magically found this plant. And while it is kind of catchy, some aspects haven't aged well, like when they mention, I found it from a strange old Chinese man.
Yeah.
And then the three girls go, Shang Da Du, and it's that's a little yikes.
Which, with the girls, they also help to kind of give a little razzle-dazzle.
Yeah. But I feel like in a lot of instances, it's a bare bones song.
It's not that long either.
It's not that long as well.
A minute.
It's not bad, so I'm not going to put it in D tier, but it's not also the greatest thing. So I think C.
C is definitely good.
Yeah.
4 is...
It's the W... Isn't that the radio one?
It is, yeah. The W...
It's very short. And
15 seconds.
It's 15 seconds. So I can't see it being higher than a B.
Definitely B tier.
B tier. Yeah.
Next up is You Never Know. And this is actually... The first part of it is where Mr. Mushnick... Mr. Mushnick... Excuse me. Explains how this little plant that Seymour got will help him with business.
Right.
And how Seymour has always been a klutz until this very moment.
Right. Sorry. You go.
And then towards the middle of the song, when he stops singing, you can see that sort of anger with Mr. Mushnick when he tells him that he messed up on a radio interview, which was also before the song, and it introduced us to the song, was the radio interview.
Right.
And you can see Seymour's frustration with that as well, telling him that he tried. Mr. Mushnick tries to take advantage of this fame that Seymour has, right?
Yeah.
By taking pictures of him, trying to be involved. Mr. Mushnick leaves, and the girls explain to Seymour how he is an overnight sensation.
Right.
Right, and that's what the whole singing part was. I'm so cold.
So yeah, I think it is a little long. So I think B tier. That's a solid B.
Solid B.
And then next, after that,
Is Somewhere That's Green.
wait, no, we skipped over Grow For Me. Remember?
Is that what 4 was?
Yeah,
That's
because
what
it's
4 was.
it's Dadu,
No,
and then it's
WSKID was 5, and you never know it's 5A.
oh, that's what it is. Yeah. So sorry about that.
So we messed up.
So before
Big oops.
before the radio interview, Seymour sings to the plant trying to get it to grow. In my honest opinion, it's just okay. If in my opinion, it's kind of a D tier. Like,
Nah, I feel D tier is a bit harsh.
I don't want to put it in like. Can we compromise and say like D plus? Like,
D plus, C minus.
yeah, on its way to being a C, but it doesn't quite get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's all right, but if it had something to push it over its edge, then it'd be a C. So low C, high D.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a fair
That's
assessment.
a fair compromise.
So
Next up is Somewhere That's Green.
right,
And this is Audrey saying about how she craves a new life.
it's a very slow song. We
Well,
have
I
a
feel
lot of energy within You Never Know, and everything kind of slows down, and we get Audrey's perspective of everything. And I really like that. I like the fact that she doesn't want a big, grandiose life. She just wants an average, simple life with a guy that she can just, like, depend on. And that's really, really, like, that's commendable. And I really like that. So, my opinion, I'd put it in A tier, but what do you think?
If it's A tier, it's definitely high A tier. High A, low S.
Yeah. I think it also, you really get to see, like, the performer's Audrey. You get to really see how they are as a character and how they portray the character. And that's, like, such a valuable thing to the musical, is seeing Audrey. Because she's such a prominent feature. And if you, like, that song is a big defining, like, not moment within her character, but a moment for the audience to have, you know?
For them to truly see that Audrey wants just a simple life with a guy like Seymour.
Right. But she can't have it because she's with Oren. And she also doesn't think she's good enough for someone like Seymour.
Mm-hmm. Which I feel like that's also something. Seymour doesn't feel like he's good enough for Audrey because of her standards or something like a professional like Oren. He feels like he is definitely below Oren
And
as
also,
far as professionalism.
Yeah, and also because he's just been beaten down by Mr. Mushnick all these years. So he doesn't think, wow, he doesn't think that he's good enough. And that's so, like, strong as, like, motivations and, like, character convictions, you know? And then from Somewhere That's Green, we have
Close for
Renovation.
Close for Renovation.
Let's talk about it.
It's so mid.
It's so, okay.
I hate performing the song.
You get to perform it, so I think you should go first.
Okay.
What's your opinion?
So, first I should tell you what Close for Renovation is about. What it is now...
It's a transition song.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're transitioning the set. We're making it look nice now.
Yeah. But what it is story-wise is it's these three workers with their newfound success. They feel like they should spiffen up the store a bit. So they clean it up.
They put
And
new
that-
plants in.
That's it. That's all it is.
And Audrey, too, is the new attraction. In my opinion,
Or
See,
the bigger Audrey too.
there's multiple plans. Because it's the third Audrey, too.
Yeah.
But, in my opinion, it's a C tier. What do you think?
Low C, high D. Like,
What's your, like, when you think of the song, what's your first instinct? So how low do you want to put it? Because I will compromise.
I want to put it in D tier.
D tier?
I feel like Close Renovation is so... Oh.
I can do D tier. I'm cool with that.
Okay.
D tier is fine.
Next
we have my song. It introduces... Ooh, it's
Orange Scrivello.
He's a stinky boy.
DDS.
DDS. But it introduces Orin, and you really get to see what Audrey has to deal with, and, like, the manipulative, psychotic, sadistic man that he is, and how he, like, he treats these random, like, street girls within his fantasy like this. Think about how he treats Audrey, you know?
And also his patients. He talks about how he causes his patients distress.
Exactly, and he gets off, like...
On the pain that he
Exactly.
inflicts.
And, like, he doesn't feel remorseful, he loves what he does, and it's kind of a bop. Like,
it is. It's so catchy.
It gives, like, a 1960s rocker vibe, which he totally fits into with that, like, greaser aesthetic. And honestly, this isn't me being biased because I perform the song.
Yeah, no,
I think it's honestly S tier. Our first S tier.
S tier, definitely.
I think it's S tier. It's kind of, like, it's pretty good. Like, there's no, like, real flaw I see about it. And in particular, I like the way that we're doing it within our school because of, like, the interpretation of the song. And I like the fact that I do that, like, high kind of Bee Gees, like, for, like, one of the, like, long notes, like, oh, me. Like, that's cool. I like that part. Because it gives him such a cool, like, again, 1960s rocker vibe.
It truly gives him, like, his personality.
This is him as a character. Like, you get all of, like, the cool machismo that he has, like, his, like, tough guy persona, but then also the side of him that's a sadist. And it works so well within the plot and also just as a song.
I know.
You know?
Alright, Mushnik and Son.
Mushnik and Son, let's talk about it.
It's so good.
So what ends up happening is Orin, me, talks to Seymour, and I'm like, get out of this dump. Go to any other shop, get your fix, like, get out of here. You can make more money. And of course, Seymour's like, okay.
Like he doesn't like Orin. Because he knows what he does to Audrey. So...
He's not paying attention, really, but Mushnik takes this as, oh, what if Seymour leaves me?
And, of course, he's not in the shop. He's eavesdropping.
Yeah, he's eavesdropping on the conversation.
Like, what if Seymour leaves me? I need to come up with a plan to get Seymour to stay here.
So, Mushnik, in his brilliance, decides that he is going to try and adopt Seymour. This, like, 20-year-old man, he's like, oh, would you like to be my son?
And Mushnik's like, what? Probably in his late 40s, early 50s?
Yeah.
And he's doing this, like, whole spiel to get Seymour to be his son. And, of course, Seymour's like, creepy old man.
Get away from me. Yeah.
And somewhere in the song, Seymour's even trying to say to him, like, you're being a little weird at the moment. I thought you said that I was, like, worthless, right?
Yeah, and it's like, no, I was joking. I was just joking, Seymour.
And then he truly starts to get desperate. He gets on his knees.
And he's the cool, oh my god. Side note, every time that you're like, boy, it's so cool. That high note, every time, dude, it's cool. I can tell you have fun with that song when you perform it. That, and I really like the ending when he's like, okay, I'll be your son, and then you guys start dancing together.
We do the tango. It's so good.
It's such a cool choreography. Honestly, I am so ready to put this song as an A tier. A, or like, really high A, almost S, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot to put it. So let's talk about, depending on the version that you get for Little Shop, Sudden Changes is either included in Get It, or it's a separate song. I'm gonna treat it as a separate song.
Alright.
It's just okay.
Yeah,
it's
pretty short.
It's short. It's like the radio one, so I think giving it like a B or a C, you know?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay.
And
Get It.
Let's talk about
Let's talk about
Okay, Get It is absolutely bonkers.
I love Get It so much.
This is when you have Audrey 2 talk for the first time, and it's this deep, bassy voice that'll lure Seymour in, and he's telling him, feed me, and Seymour's like, what do you mean? Because up until this point, Seymour is just feeding him like little drops from his finger, like blood.
Because he wouldn't eat normal plant food.
Exactly. And he's like, feed me now. And he's like, where am I supposed to get it? And he, like, the plant doesn't care as long as he's being fed.
Like, and because he's not as Lil anymore, he's not going to survive off little droplets of blood. So this song is the plant manipulating Seymour into killing a guy to essentially get his fix.
Mm-hmm.
And Seymour and the plant eventually compromise to kill the dentist.
Right. Because what ends up happening is during the song, Seymour's like, where am I even supposed to get it? I don't know anybody who deserves to die. And then the plant's like, sure you do.
Yeah.
And then I storm in with Audrey saying, like,
Right.
well, sorry.
The dentist.
The dentist storms in with Audrey saying, like, you forget your sweater, get in there, pick it up. And she's like, I'm so sorry.
And then it ends with him going...
Yeah. That interaction ends with him being in the shop smacking Audrey. And so this gives Seymour motivation to be like, no, there is someone I can kill who deserves it. And so because of that, he's plotting with the plant to kill the dentist. And this song is really cool because you get the introduction of Audrey too, and you get that really nice bass texture against a tenor, you know, and that's solid. But then also, you get that section where Seymour starts singing, and it's pure rocker aesthetic, and
he goes so high.
It's so cool. It goes like all the way up past the staff line. It's really cool. He does a lot of really cool like vocal riffs, and honestly, I'm gonna say it, S tier.
Yes.
Definitely an S tier. There's like no arguing with it.
Yeah.
Like we've only had a couple S tiers, and that's for a reason. This is one of the ones that like, this is where the musical peaks, you know?
Yes. And then we go into song number 11, which is now, parentheses, it's just the gas,
Yeah.
in parentheses.
Yeah. I'll talk about it with the perspective of performing it.
And then I'll talk about it with the perspective
Yeah.
of actually listening.
It's a little awkward. Like, singing it for being, like, the dentist part, it's a lot of sharps and flats, which makes it hard to kind of hear your notes sometimes, and it makes it hard to perform in a lot of instances. That, and it's pretty high. Like, it's consistently up near the staff line. Music nerd stuff, sorry.
Plus it's in the treble clef, so it's, like, really high.
Yeah. And then you also, so to start, Seymour goes into the dentist's office and is like, I'm gonna kill you now. And then he's like, okay. And then he's like, oh, this is gonna be a challenge. I'm gonna want some gas for this one. Because his fix is having nitrous oxide, laughing gas, while he does his work, because that increases his pleasure. And so
the irony in that is that's supposed to go to the patient to numb their pain.
And so he's essentially addicted to it. So because of that, he goes to put on a laughing mask while Seymour's contemplating how he's going to kill him. And then when Seymour does his first couple verses, it ends, and then from behind the curtain, you just hear the dentist going wild. I'm talking like laughing like crazy. And that part is...
think about like Joker. From
like
that
type of
series.
laugh. It's so weird to have to perform because you have to like, you start low. Like there's no way to start high and then like ramp up. You have to start really low, kind of like a Seth Rogen chuckle, like a and then as you go up, it slowly scales and scales and scales.
To the point where you're doing like a falsetto laughing.
Exactly. What's weird about it though is it doesn't feel like falsetto. Like I'm not like, it's not, whenever you flip into falsetto, music nerd stuff, you can tell like when it feels like you're flipping. When I'm doing it, I can't feel that at all. I'm just going like really, really high.
Bonkers.
Like just using like my chest to like, and of course like making sure I'm not like damaging anything here. But that song, and then after I start laughing, I go out, I have a little bit of a monologue, and then realize, oh, the gas mask isn't coming off. Seymour, you need help. And Seymour's like, well... And then the dentist starts singing about, like, even though I'm laughing like an idiot, please take it off because I could die. And then Seymour's contemplating it. And all the while, the dentist is struggling on the ground until eventually he sings one more time and then is, like, talking about, are you relieved that I'm dying? Or that I laughed myself to death? And then as he starts to laugh, he slowly starts to fade out. until you hear nothing, and then Seymour finishes the song with, like, because the dentist goes, "Are you satisfied? I laughed myself too. Laugh, 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 laugh." And then Seymour goes, "Death," and then he dies. Objectively, it's about an A. Me performing it, it's like a B. I don't like it. I don't like performing it because
No, I love listening to it.
it's a hard song. I'm not even gonna lie. And that's kind of why my rating's like,
Alright. Something else I feel like we should do is the
Mhm.
Act 1 finale, which that's when they feed.
So the Act 1 finale, it's really cool because of the lighting design, just in general, especially for what we have. But as a song itself, it's essentially the prologue just in a minor key. That's
Yeah.
literally it. It's like if the prologue was like a major happy key, the finale is like a minor sad key.
Definitely.
And that's kind of how I put it. So do you remember we put it at a B tier, right? For
Yeah.
So I think putting it near a B next to it would be fine.
Here be. Alright. And then we move on to Act 2 where we start off with Call Back in the Morning.
Yeah. You're in it for a little bit.
I'm in it for like the first little bit.
Yeah.
And honestly, listening to it,
It's kind of boring.
it's not horrible.
It's not.
But it's
the worst.
definitely not as good as, say, like, Get It or
like
Dentist.
Yeah. So I think a fair placement would be like low C, high D, or like even just
Yeah.
D tier. honestly.
D tier, honestly.
Yeah.
I feel like they're
like we haven't had an F yet because there aren't any like abysmal songs. It's just like songs that it serves
just
its
kinda
purpose,
okay.
but it's not something that I'm gonna be like when it turns on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's, and you get that with musicals a lot. Just in general, it's like you don't get songs that you're like, because some of the time it's just like this is a song that's here because I don't know, it fills the narrative. You know?
Yeah. So I feel like we should also kind of discuss what's going on in Call Back in the Morning.
Right.
So Call Back in the Morning essentially is the big success. And this is also the first time we get to see the big Audrey too.
Yeah.
Like the final version of the plan.
Because Act 1 finale, you have intermission, and in that time, we're scrambling backstage like idiots trying to get it on its stand so that we can have a big Audrey 2 for Act 2.
And there's a reason it needs to... man, that heavy country accent. There's a reason it needs to be that big. There's a reason it needs to be that big, which... foreshadowing for the next couple songs.
Next couple, yeah.
Which it's just them having their big success, and they're being busy on the phones, going back and forth between different customers, and essentially, it gets to closing time, which for them is 6 o'clock, which they're like, okay, call back in the morning. I'm
Yeah.
done.
I feel like Call Back in the Morning. Yeah, we already rated it, right?
Yeah. Details.
Yeah, we just gave the details for it.
So next is
It's Suddenly Seymour. Okay.
I feel like it's such a good song.
Speaking objectively, because I'm talking about like listening to like a Broadway cast production, like it's such a pretty song. It's so pretty. I love Seymour. He tends to take the like top notes.
In our
and, like,
production, our Seymour can't do that.
Yeah, but it's okay. That's fine. But for like the Broadway one, the high notes against Audrey's like lovely like middle of the staff note, it just like the harmonies from it are so cool. It's such a beautiful progression with the music. The key changes in it are so dynamic. It's so pretty.
Dude.
I love that song so much, and I love Audrey being able to like finally break out of her mindset thinking she's not good enough for somebody who loves her, and for her to open up to Seymour and finally declare that maybe Seymour is the guy for me. You know?
I also love how the song is kind of almost as slow as Somewhere That's Green. Because it
Exactly.
really shows, like, this is one of Audrey's songs.
And it really works that Seymour is as supportive and as loving as he is during the song, because he's the one who starts it off. And it's so lovely, because it's just him saying, you don't need to worry about your past that you had anymore. Everything's going to be fine. Because Audrey used to work at essentially a nightclub, wearing what she would call cheap,
tasteless outfits.
Yeah, cheap, tasteless outfits. And having to do that every night, and that's where she met Oren. So she doesn't feel like she deserves someone like Seymour. And for her to finally be able to have someone break her out of that is so nice for her, and I love that. So honestly, I'm just gonna say it. Like, I was debating it in my head. I'm just gonna say it now. S tier.
S tier. Oh
S tier.
it's an
Like,
easy S tier.
S tier.
It's so good.
It is, honestly. It's such a... I said Get It was a highlight, but, like, so is Suddenly
When
Seymour.
you think of Little Shop of Horrors, most people would either think of Get It or Suddenly Seymour.
Exactly. And that's so, like, telling of how powerful both songs are for different reasons, you know? And it's so, like, I love it so much. It's so cool. And it's also really cool because you have, like, harmonies / melodies from Somewhere That's Green being replayed within the song. And that's so telling of, like, the story that it's unfolding, you know? Because in Somewhere That's Green, she's unsure of having someone like Seymour, and then having those same type of, like, harmonies and melodies playing out builds back into that. And it's so pretty. I love it. It's solid S tier. S plus even. If we can do that, S plus.
Alright.
Next we
Supper
have
Time.
Supper Time. I was thinking about it, I'm like, Supper Time's like a C, but then I thought about it more, I'm like, it's like an A.
It is definitely... So, backstory. Supper Time takes place almost directly...
Story time. Sorry. That's what I thought of.
It happens directly after Suddenly Seymour. And this is where Mushnick's like, okay. He's starting to, like, connect the dots and realize Seymour killed the dentist. And he's also basing off evidence from the store. Little red dots, which are blood. Which
Yeah,
is blood.
I was chopped up. The doctor was chopped up. Dentist was chopped up. And then fed to the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The little red dots, the uniform that's in the trash can, which I don't know why Seymour would do that. Just burn it.
Just burn it.
Like, what are you doing?
Put it in a trash bag. Take it out. Burn it.
What was the other piece? That's right. The final piece of evidence.
Is his baseball cap being in the dentist room, right?
Yeah, and also, the final piece of the puzzle was essentially Seymour. In Mr. Mushnick's eyes, it was Seymour stealing the dentist girl.
Right. Because he was like, he didn't think much about it, like the coincidences, until he saw him with Audrey. Because that's what tipped him off to, something's up here. And that's why he starts to pursue Seymour and be like, you need to go to the police station now. And Seymour, in this almost panic, he's like, oh, but what about the receipts for the day? Like, what about all of our orders? And he's like, what do you mean? He was like, aren't you gonna collect them? And he's like, I thought you put them in the cash register. And he's like, is that what it is? The cash register? Or is it in the safe?
The safe.
Yeah.
But first, before that, Audrey 2's telling him, like,
yeah,
like, he knows what you've done.
Yeah, he knows everything. He's on your case.
And when Audrey 2 is singing, that's essentially... Like, Mushnick can't hear it, so essentially what it is it's Audrey 2's voice in Seymour's head.
Yeah.
So Seymour decides... And then you got Ronette, Chiffon, and Crystal accompanying the plant with the singing. It's such a, like, suspenseful song, I would say.
It is. And
because it builds up, and then Seymour decides, okay, this isn't going on. Mushnick, you need to go.
yeah, so he's like, oh, well, the safe is inside the plant. And he's like, the plant? And he's like, just trust me. Just go in.
He's skeptical, but, like, he trusts Seymour enough. Like, they had a whole musical number about him being his son.
So he climbs in, and then Audrey 2 chomps down on him as Mr. Mushnick is screaming for help.
Which I love doing that scream, by the way.
And also, like, the singing for, like, him slowly being like, it's supper time, it's supper time, it's supper time, until eventually Seymour's like, it's in the plant. It's so cool. And the screaming and the acting overall, like, that's what makes it an A tier. Because if it was just the music, if it was just, like, the girl singing, it'd be like a B, or like a C. But because of, like, everything that goes on, and the suspense, and, like, kind of the horror of it, ironically, is what makes it so good. Which is why I'm so down to put it as, like, A tier. Not high A tier, though. Like, middle or lower A tier.
That's fair. Also, something else with Supper Time is I feel like this is the song that truly makes Seymour a villain.
Exactly. Like, Seymour goes from being a protagonist that's just trying to make it out of here into someone who has
Fed people.
like killed 2 people. Like, you can argue with the dentist, like, well, technically the dentist did it to himself because the gas mask got stuck and he just didn't take it off of him. So you can say, oh, technically the dentist was the one who did that to himself. But this is kind of like Seymour is cementing himself as, I am going to kill him in order to make sure that I get out of this, you know?
And another thing is, with Mr. Mushnick going to the police, he just wanted to go to the police to tell him, okay, it's not Seymour. But what Audrey 2 was trying to say to Seymour was like, he's gonna put you in jail!
Yeah.
You're going to get hanged if you don't kill this man!
Yeah.
But that's not at all what Mr. Mushnick was trying to do.
He was trying to, like, straighten everything out. He's like, well, if you're really not guilty, then come to the police office with me and explain everything. I want to know what's going on.
And this was just Mr. Mushnick being a good guy, which we haven't seen earlier in the music.
Right. Like, we knew he was a bit of a curmudgeon, but this is him trying to, like, do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Next is The Meek Shall Inherit. Honestly, okay. So you have the different people who are singing, and in the Broadway cast, it's freaking hilarious because they have the person who did the dentist, Orrin, as the different characters. So you have
it says it in the script.
Yeah, so you have it to where he's these different characters. So you have it to where he's this, like, old, like, English lady, like, oh, Seymour! And then you have it to where it's like, hey, Seymour, how you doing, baby? Let me talk you into that. Like, it's really funny. But
wasn't Orrin supposed to be Bernstein?
Yeah, and, like, Seymour Krelborn. Like, that type of, like...
Which I think this was the musical's attempt to try to get the actor of Orrin into more stuff, considering it's a pretty big role. But he's only really in Act 1 and in the end of
and then
Act
there
2.
isn't just a lot of, like, characters in general, so you might as well, like, instead of hiring multiple people, just, like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, because we don't have the type of, like, station to do quick changes like that, and also we have a lot of people, we're just having them fill in for it. And while they serve the characters well, this is talking about, like, as the performer / our experience as the performance, it works. It's okay. The original one, the Broadway one, freaking hilarious. I like that part. But what really kind of, like, picks up the song for me is Seymour singing in the Broadway one, you know, because that's such raw emotion behind it.
Like,
and
this is him finally saying, like, no, I'm not going to live with all this guilt anymore.
But then he eventually succumbs to it when he realizes, but what if I lose Audrey? And that's what ends up him saying yes to all of these deals and all of these offers. And then, after that...
Oh, what is it? Is it Somonex?
Yeah, / Supper Time Reprise. So, there's a bit of in-between from Meek Shall Inherit to Supper Time Reprise. And what ends up happening is Seymour is talking to Audrey and is like, if the Audrey 2 never existed, would you still love me? And, like, wow. He says, would you still like me? And she goes, I'd still love you. So that cements for him, okay, once the deals with, like, Life magazine and all of the stuff is done, I'm killing the plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's talking to the plant. And he's like, oh, you're not being fed yet. Just, like, shut up. And he says, after Life magazine comes, you won't have to worry about being fed ever again. And he's like, okay. And then doesn't he go out to grab some food?
Sirloin.
Yeah, chopped sirloin. He's like, fine, I'll get you some chopped sirloin, and then I'll leave. After that, you're done. And what ends up happening is he sees Audrey out in the streets. So he starts singing and kind of calling to her. And she doesn't really know why she's out there. She just felt like, why not just go outside for a bit? And then she starts hearing the plant, and it's like, is that Seymour inside? So she goes inside, and then sees that the plant is talking, and he's talking her into, oh, just give me some water. Just, like, do this for me. And then she gets close up to him, and then the plant chomps down on Audrey and starts to eat her, and then Seymour comes in, and is like, stop it, no! And then what ends up happening is, after that song for Supper Time, she dies. And in between that, before she dies, she says to Seymour,
Is Somewhere That's Green reprise.
Yeah, Somewhere That's Green reprise. Next song. We should do Michelle and Harriet. We put at, what was it? Do we rate Michelle and Harriet?
Was it C?
C tier. C tier.
We should probably also do Supper Time.
Supper Time reprise. It's pretty cool. It's not as good as the original Supper Time, so I think B.
B. Yeah. And then Somewhere That's Green is
Reprise. Yeah. Reprise. Whatever.
is essentially Audrey saying, I'm too weak to keep going, you have to feed me to the plant, and then we can be together.
Together forever. You'll smell my perfume in the flowers, and I'll always be there to make you successful and to help you. And then Audrey dies at the end. And then Seymour picks her up and then puts her inside the plant. It's very emotional. It's a short song, and it's very somber, but it's still very emotionally packed, and I like it for that. Like, her being fed to the plant, it's a big orchestral moment. It's very like, blah, 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 blah. It's very cool. It's very big. It's this big, cool moment, but I feel like it's still like B. Middle B.
Middle B, yeah.
And then after that...
Was it Death of Seymour? I believe was the next
Is
one.
that the name of it? It's...
Yeah. And in fact, we skipped over Death of Audrey, which that's the suspenseful chords leading up to her death.
Oh, yeah.
Should we really count those?
No, I wouldn't count them.
I don't even think we should count Death of Seymour, because it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
But in the song, it's just Seymour rhythmically saying, take that and that, as he's shooting the plant.
Yeah. So then Seymour tries killing the plant. He shoots it with a pistol. He tries rat poison. He tries all of this stuff, and then he's like, fine, if I can't kill you from the outside, I'll go from the inside. So he, like, swan dives inside of Audrey 2.
With a machete.
And then the Audrey 2 spits out the machete. So Seymour died.
Yeah.
And then after that, what ends up happening is...
Martin
comes
over with the 3 girls, and he's like...
Well, wait. We should explain. So before Audrey dies... Well, after Audrey dies, it's a day later. Seymour's depressed. And then Martin tries coming in. Martin is like a sales guy, and is like, we could plant the Audrey 2 all over. And he's like, no. So
No.
then he goes to try and kill the Audrey 2. And then once he hops into the plant, Martin comes back and is like...
And he realizes, like, oh, Seymour's not here. We can just do it now.
Yeah. And so he has the girls assist him in snipping portions of the Audrey 2 and having it shipped out all across America. And then what ends up happening...
Is that leads into finale.
Right. So let's rate... So we did that, so now we have finale. Finale?
Performing-wise, it's okay. But actually listening to it...
Listening to it, it's kind of cool. I'll give it C.
C, definitely.
Low C. Low C? Or middle?
Low C, definitely.
Low C. It's the finale. What ends up happening is Ronette, Chiffon, and Crystal come out and explain that all of the events that you just saw, like, unfold is happening all over the United States, all over again. And the Audrey 2 grew and began to eat all of these cities, and then it ends with including this theater, and then all of the people within the cast and everybody who died comes out, and then starts talking about how whatever you do, don't feed the plant. And then that's
like
how...
they could offer you this or that, and try to manipulate you, but whatever you do, you shouldn't feed them.
Yeah. And then that's what ends out the musical.
Alright. Quick little bonus song I want to rate is Mean Green Mother from the movie version.
From the movie. Okay, so the movie and the Broadway version / the musical, they have 2 separate endings. The movie ending, it changed because when they did screen tests with the original ending, like the Broadway one, the audience didn't like it. So they changed it to where Seymour killed Audrey 2. But Audrey 2 sings the song Big Green Mother.
He's telling him you should watch your tone and you shouldn't talk to me like that. And in the movie, see, I watched the movie.
Yeah.
10 times.
Real. No. Valid.
And what it is it's Audrey 2 toying with Seymour before he tries to kill him.
Right.
And this is also in the original ending of the movie version where he kills Seymour.
Right.
Which of course he kills Seymour after the song.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is Seymour doesn't actually jump into the plant. The plant takes him with his vines, and he's slowly bringing it... I'm not making that motion. As he slowly brings him to his mouth.
Yeah. It's a cool song.
It's so good.
It's this, like, bombastic, like, kind of big band jazz mixed with rock type song. And it's so, like, powerful feeling. It's so cool. Honestly.
You also got background voices.
Yeah.
Which in the movie are just different plants.
Yeah, and they're like popping out, like singing, like ba ba ba. Honestly, A tier. I'm not even gonna like
A tier.
A tier.
And in the edited movie version, it ends with Seymour electrocuting Audrey too.
Yeah.
And I love his final words. You can censor words on this, right?
Yeah.
His final words were, "Oh shit."
So yeah, I think that concludes our middle break within the podcast. Back to Sam finding his evidence.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Let's hope it recorded everything. It did.